So Trump said, okay, I can be the Bitcoin president. And for all the crypto people, I'm going to get their votes. But I'm not going to lose the votes of the non-crypto people. They don't even care. Government is broke. Taxes have to go up. Now, the only taxes Trump is willing to raise are tariffs, but he's pretending that the Chinese pay those. Bitcoin is copying all of the characteristics that gold has that makes it function as money better than other commodities. But the one thing it doesn't copy is the most important thing. People think that I don't own Bitcoin because I don't understand it. No, I understand it precisely. That's why I don't own it. It's the people who own it that don't understand it. That's why they own it. They understood it, they'd sell it.
I'm gonna level with you. My next guest here on the Corner Office makes me a little nervous, but it's not just because of his piercing blue eyes. He's an entrepreneur, an author, a podcaster, and a well-known gold lover who's a part of the 1%. Actually, he took on protesters at a movement called Occupy Wall Street 13 years ago in New York City with a sign that said, "I'm the 1%, let's talk." Why was he there? Well, in his words, my point is to talk to people who are protesting capitalism and Wall Street and letting them know that they should be protesting government and Washington instead. Well, Peter, just a couple days after Election Day in America, do you think that people are hearing you?
Well, some people are hearing me, but I'm not surprised at the results of the election. I had been predicting for quite some time that Trump would win, and it's because the economy is lousy, and the voters want a change, and they're hoping that Trump can deliver that change. Now, unfortunately, things are going to get worse under Trump. They would have continued to get worse under Harris, but I knew that because things were a lot worse than the mainstream media, Wall Street, the Harris administration or Biden administration was claiming, I knew that wasn't true, and that the voters understood that. They're struggling to get by. The cost of living has gone up dramatically. People are working 2 or 3 jobs just to pay the bills. They're drowning in debt, and they're looking for some relief. Unfortunately, they're not going to get it. It's just going to get worse.
So you think it's going to get worse before it gets better? Is that correct?
It's going to get worse before it gets even worse. I mean, we're not at the point where it's going to get worse before it gets better yet, because we haven't actually done anything to bring about the kind of constructive pain that would eventually lead to the long-term gain.
And Trump won just like he did 4 years ago because he promised better economy for Americans.
Yeah, well,
but he didn't.
You mean 8 years ago. He lost 4 years ago when he won 8
Correct.
years
Sorry
ago.
about that. 8 years ago. But he's promised the same thing again, and we could argue that that's also why he won just 2 days ago. What is the problem with that?
He didn't deliver on his promise. He pretended that we had a great economy, just like Biden has been pretending that we have a great economy now. The thing is that the pretend great economy that Trump had, by comparison to the pretend great economy that Biden has, it wasn't as bad. So it looks good by comparison. So people would prefer to go back to where it was 4 years ago. Unfortunately, we can't. We have a lot more debt than we had 4 years ago. The economy is far more screwed up now than it was 4 years ago. And Trump's policies, unfortunately, won't address those underlying problems. So they'll continue to get worse.
And you throughout your career, you've been known for making bold predictions. What would you say, other than what you've gone through so far, will allow your views to misalign with what has been going on?
Well, what's been going on is that governments have been sustaining a bubble economy, and it spans many presidencies. It really took hold with Bush and the way they reacted to the bursting of the dot-com bubble in 2001, and Alan Greenspan, who was the Fed chair at the time, and his monetary policy. But those reckless policies have continued now for more than 20 years, 25 years almost, and they've done tremendous damage to the structure of the economy, which was already damaged somewhat before they began, but now it's so much worse. So we just have these enormous fiscal imbalances, huge trade deficits, huge budget deficits, and the whole economy is just built on debt and consumption, and it's going to implode because it's unsustainable. They're trying to sustain it by going deeper into debt, but at some point, there's a limit, and the creditors won't lend anymore. International partners won't hold dollars anymore, and the whole thing collapses.
So what's your message to people who are hearing this and see your points and want to protect themselves, want to hedge?
Yeah, well, to the extent that they have a portfolio where they're making investments, you should take advantage of the recent rise in U.S. stocks to be a seller, and own stocks outside the United States selectively, not indiscriminately, but own the right value-oriented companies that pay good dividends and that are in the right countries, and also look at some of the emerging markets, not just the developed markets, but emerging markets. Look at resource type investments, energy, agriculture, metals and mining, particularly precious metals, because I think gold and silver are going to reassert themselves as money during this period. Central banks are already buying gold. They're going to buy a lot more gold in the years ahead at much higher prices than the 27.50 we're at right now, which is not too far from a record high. But silver is only about $33 an ounce. That's a pretty good bargain for a metal that's going to be hundreds of dollars an ounce in the not too distant future, I think. So
silver often gets less attention than gold. What's your take on silver as an investment compared to gold?
Well, I think the reason that silver hasn't done as well as gold is the primary buyers have been central banks, and they don't buy silver, they buy gold. The retail investors have kind of been absent. Wall Street hasn't been investing, right? There's been net outflows this year for the gold ETFs and the gold mining ETFs. But a lot of people are buying Bitcoin, or they're buying nothing, right? And so I think that when retail investors realize what's going on and realize how much of a move they've already missed out on when it comes to gold, I think they're going to buy silver. Silver is called the poor man's gold. And so when you get the individual investors that come back to the market, they're going to go to silver, I think, more than gold. And, the price is going to outperform. But it's not an investment in the sense that it throws off any return. So you'd say it's more of a speculation that the price is going to go up. But I think the price is too low, because I think there's a general misconception out there about inflation and its outlook. People think, oh, inflation is going to stay low. The Fed is saying it's going to be 2%. It's not even going to be anywhere close to 2%. It'll be multiples of that. And so people need to get out of dollars and actually other fiat currencies too. You're going to be seeing weakness in the euro and the pound. I mean, yen. All these governments are inflating their money supply, and so their currencies are going to buy less of everything, particularly gold and silver. So people should buy those. Don't get distracted by the sideshow in Bitcoin. I know a lot of people in the Bitcoin community are trying to fool people into buying Bitcoin under the pretense that it's some digital version of gold that's better than gold. But that's just a bunch of hype. Yes, it's gone up a lot because people have bought into this nonsense. That's the dynamic of any kind of pyramid scheme, which is really what it is. The people that own Bitcoin, they make money because other people buy it. And the only money that's actually made is by transferring wealth from the people who buy Bitcoin to the people who sell it. So if you buy Bitcoin, you're just helping to make somebody who's selling it richer, but at your expense. If you can find,
would you say that's
if you could,
would you say that's why
yours, then you'll,
Would you say that's why you, like, at the core, dislike Bitcoin? Because you think it's trickery?
Well, it's not real. I mean, it's just fool's gold. I mean, so there's no reason to like it. People have made a lot of money off of it because other people don't realize that it's nothing. You have a whole cult that has kind of grown around it. And I think they're blinded by the ideology and the money that they think they're going to make when Bitcoin is millions and millions of dollars per coin. But the Bitcoin community has been very successful in enticing people in, and now they've used their money to buy politicians. They bought Trump, and now they're hoping that they can get the government to start buying Bitcoin. Because that's what they need. They need more buyers. Like any pyramid scheme, it ends as soon as you run out of new buyers. And I think they kind of ran out of new individual buyers. So then they got Wall Street in on the game, and they come up with a bunch of ETFs, and now they suckered in some stock investors, but now that's kind of saturated. And so they're trying to rope in the U.S. government to put taxpayer money in. But at some point, this thing is going to implode because there's nobody left to buy, and that means the people who already bought can't get out.
And you say it's not, I'm assuming you say it's not real because it's not backed by a physical entity?
Well, it's not real because it's just a string of worthless numbers, online. It's one of tens of thousands of crypto tokens. They're not even really currencies, but there's nothing really unique about it other than the fact that it was first and it's now the largest. It's got the most infrastructure, the most supporters. But at the end of the day, all that infrastructure, all that support is for nothing. There's nothing there, right? There's no there. But yes, there is just 21 million Bitcoin, 2.1 quadrillion, Satoshis. So, if people want to buy them and nobody wants to sell them, the price can go way up. The problem is when people want to sell them and no one wants to buy them, the price comes collapsing down because there's no end user, right? For gold, in addition to central banks that are always going to need gold as, a reserve asset, there's an entire industry that needs gold. Gold is the most useful metal we have, and there's lots of demand for it. And so even if people don't want to buy gold as a store of value or because they think the price is going to go up, there's somebody who needs to buy gold and will buy more as the price goes down.
So the question for you, so if gold, let's say, gets replaced someday, does that wipe away gold's value?
Well, how would you replace it? I don't replace it with what?
Another metal, like in electronics, for example?
Well, there are other metals, and in some cases, other metals are used. I mean, we use copper in wiring. Gold would work better than copper, but it's just too expensive. So they use copper instead because, for the money, it's, the extra price of using gold, it's not worth it. You could use copper. So you'll always substitute metals, but sometimes you need gold. Like when they had a big telescope that they launched into space, and it had these enormous mirrors. And in order to make it work, they had to coat them with gold. Now, they would have preferred to coat them with a cheaper metal, but it wouldn't have worked. So they used gold.
You've also said on a past podcast called Impact Theory that you would change your mind on Bitcoin if it's a replacement to the dollar, the primary currency. Well, I guess my next question is, why must it?
How would I admit?
I'm sorry?
How would I admit that I was wrong about Bitcoin? And I said, well, if one day the Bitcoiners are right and Bitcoin, has replaced fiat currencies as a unit of account and a medium of exchange, if I walk into the supermarket and all the products are priced in Bitcoin, if everything is in Bitcoin, right? If wages and salaries and insurance premiums, if the whole world or even a big chunk of it is actually using Bitcoin as money, then I'd have to admit that I'm wrong. Obviously at that point, I'd be wrong. But the thing is, I've been criticizing Bitcoin and saying that it wouldn't be used as money and it wouldn't work as money since the beginning. And Bitcoin is no closer to being money now than it was when it started.
I have a close friend of mine who is actually in the cryptocurrency realm industry. And he says, actually, I agree with Peter Schiff. I agree that it won't replace the dollar as a primary currency. But he's still thinking, but I see it as a valuable investment class. If you were face to face with him, what would you say?
Look, as long as people are willing to buy it and the people who own it don't want to sell it, it will go up. And so I'm not saying that it can't, but I don't want to bet on that. It's too dangerous. I wouldn't be able to sleep well at night if I had a significant amount of money in Bitcoin because I'd be worried about it collapsing while I was asleep. You can sleep soundly with gold. And the only people who aren't worried about their Bitcoin are the ones that don't understand what it is, right? Which makes it easier for them to buy it. That's why it's so hard for me to buy it. I know what it is. So I have enough sense to be worried about it. The people who aren't worried about it, it's because they don't get it, right? The people think that I don't own Bitcoin because I don't understand it. No, I understand it precisely. That's why I don't own it. It's the people who own it that don't understand it. That's why they own it. They understood it, they'd sell it.
Trump's campaign policies have also been very crypto friendly, and participants are going to be looking for follow through. Do you think that's going to happen?
Not really. I mean, Trump is a politician, even though he's new to the game. Although he's been running for president now, for the last 8 years, 9 years, and he's won 2 out of 3 races, maybe 3 for 3 if you figure they cheated the second time, maybe 4 if you figure he beat Biden, and he beat Biden so bad that he dropped out, and then he beat Harris, so he beat them both. But
that's true. Actually, I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah, so he's knocking them down. But there are a lot of people that own crypto. I mean, as a percentage of the overall population, it's still a minority, but it's a significant, motivated minority. They really want Bitcoin to go up because they own it and they need it to go up. And so I think Trump was very smart in cultivating their support and pandering to that special interest group, because he didn't lose any votes. You see, there's some, single issue votes, like let's say abortion, right? You come out pro-life and you lose the pro-choice people. You come out pro-choice. For people who are single issue voters, that's your only issue. You're going to alienate somebody when you get somebody. But for the Bitcoin community, the most important pocketbook issue to them was Bitcoin. What are you going to do to make the price of my Bitcoin go up? So Trump said, okay, I can be the Bitcoin president. And for all the crypto people, I'm going to get their votes, but I'm not going to lose the votes of the non-crypto people. They don't even care, right? It's not divisive. It was a no-lose deal for Trump. Because if you want to know what Trump actually thinks, look at what he said about it when he was president the first time. He said it was a scam. It had no value. He said, the same things that I say. And, now he tried to claim, well, I'm educated. He's not educated. He flip-flopped only to get votes. That's what politicians do. They say what they need to say. And not only did he get votes, he got a lot of money. Some of the biggest campaign donations to Trump came from the crypto community. Now, I know a lot of those donors are going to want something for their money, but Trump's under no obligation and he can't run for re-election. And so, politicians break a lot of promises after they get elected. And I think, he probably made a lot of promises to the crypto community that I think he's going to break, because he's got to have to break a lot of his promises. He's going to have to break most of them.
You said from the top that, you think some people have heard you when you say that the real problem is government and Washington. What are the consequences of not enough people hearing you?
Well, I mean, the problems just continue. There's not that many people that really understand. Look, the electorate voted for Trump because he promised tax cuts to everybody, right? No tax on tips. All the waiters and bartenders, Trump's my guy. No tax on overtime. A lot of people work overtime. A lot more people are going to want to work overtime when there's no tax on it. No tax on Social Security benefits. Well, shoot, a lot of people are getting Social Security, right? Then he talked about no tax on policemen, no tax on firemen. Well, you got my vote, right? Everybody's expecting, tax cuts. But the problem is the government is broke. Taxes have to go up. Now, the only taxes Trump is willing to raise are tariffs, but he's pretending that the Chinese pay those. The teachers, the firefighters, the policemen, the waiters and bartenders, they're going to pay the tariffs, right? So that will offset, some of the tax cuts that they get. But at the end of the day, if we don't have massive cuts to government spending, which Trump has pretty much taken off the table, everybody has to pay higher taxes, whether it's directly or through higher inflation.
Just want to go into Bitcoin once again. So if, let's say, we have a bit of a thought experiment, just want to pull this up in my notes. Let's say properties of both gold and Bitcoin are shared with their scarcity, durability, fungibility. If these properties are shared between the two classes, why not Bitcoin?
Oh, because Bitcoin has some of the properties of gold. Why can't it be used instead of gold? Um,
Or not instead of gold, but why would you say this is still a Ponzi scheme, a sham investment
yeah,
alternative?
because gold doesn't have value because it's divisible and portable, and even because it's scarce. Its price is higher because it's scarce, but its value comes from its properties as a metal, right? That's why we value it, because it's you know important metal for the jewelry industry. You know, gold makes really good jewelry because it doesn't tarnish. It's very easy and malleable. You can work with it, and it's easy to make rings and bracelets and pendants and all kinds of jewelry. Is made out of gold, and it's very beautiful to look at. I mean, most people like the way gold looks. But apart from the aesthetics of gold and jewelry, I mean, it's very important in aerospace, in medicine, in electronics. So it's needed for all sorts of things. That's what gives it its value. The rest of it is what makes it work as money. But it wouldn't be money without that underlying value. It wouldn't be a store of value unless you had that underlying value to store. Bitcoin is copying all of the characteristics that gold has that makes it function as money better than other commodities. But the one thing it doesn't copy is the most important thing, which would be its use as a metal. If your question is, can Bitcoin go up? Of course it can go up. I mean, look, it's $74,000 a Bitcoin. It's gone from nothing. So yes, the
Mm-hmm.
price of Bitcoin can go up. It has gone up, and it can go up more. It may not, but it certainly can. The question is, when does it stop? I don't know. And then when it stops, then it crashes. And so far, it's had many big crashes, and every time it's recovered. But at some point, there's going to be a crash from which it doesn't recover. The problem is you don't know, right? Let's say Bitcoin, which is 74,000, drops down to 40,000, 30,000. You know, is that a buying opportunity, right? Is that just another, uh, you know, dip on the way to 100,000 or 200,000? Or is it going to keep falling? You don't know, right? Until after the fact, until you look back, you buy it at 40,000 and then it drops to 20. Okay, this must be the bottom. Buy it at 20 and then it's 10, then it's 5, then it's 1,000, right? At some point, it's like but at the end of the day, that's what's going to happen to it. But I'm obviously not smart enough to tell you when, because I didn't buy it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how big the bubble was going to get, so I can't tell you exactly when it's going to pop. But the interesting thing is that gold, it made its high in terms of gold. Bitcoin wants to compare itself to gold, and it wants to say its digital gold is better than gold. Well, Bitcoin is 25% or more below its peak price 3 years ago, priced in gold. So even though it's made a new high in dollars, it hasn't made a new high in gold. So for the last few years, people are better off in gold than Bitcoin. And so that could indicate that, we've been building a big top over these past few years, and we're getting ready for a big drop.
And this is one of your views that some would consider contrarian. And you've long been like that throughout your career, especially when things that you believe in go against the mainstream. How do you keep up your convictions?
Yeah, it's difficult sometimes, and it's interesting that Bitcoin is now mainstream, right? I mean, it's not you're not a contrarian when you buy Bitcoin, right? Because everybody, I mean, you go to any financial station, look at CNBC, that's all they do is talk about Bitcoin. They never talk about gold. I mean, rarely somebody mentions it, but all day. And if you look at the advertisements, they got crypto sponsors. I mean, they sponsor the tickers. They have your Bitcoin minute, your crypto moment, whatever. It's like they're the biggest advertisers, and not just there; they're all over the place. So, and you got Wall Street now. There's 11 different Bitcoin ETFs. You got all the biggest brokerage firms out shilling Bitcoin because they're getting paid to babysit your coins in these ETFs. So yeah, it's a very mainstream consensus thing. So if you want to be a contrarian, don't buy Bitcoin. If you just want to jump on the bandwagon, that's who's in Bitcoin.
We're seeing and also have seen women become stronger when it comes to earning more and earning higher positions. So, assuming that they have more capital to invest in, are more women looking at commodities? And if not, what do you think is the friction there?
I don't know. I mean, I think most of my clientele are is male, both at my asset management company and Schiff Gold. Not that we don't have any female clients, we do, but the majority are male. And I think in general, women are a little bit uh, more risk adverse when it comes to a traditional investment. So they're going to want to be in traditional, mutual funds or index funds of large cap U.S. stocks, U.S. bonds. Even though, from my perspective, there's a lot of risk there, they don't necessarily perceive that. They're more just trying
What's the
to.
risk?
Well, the risk is inflation. The risk is that the dollar loses value. You're in getting in an overpriced market. But I think they're more cautious. At least they think they're being more cautious, and so they want to do something that they feel more comfortable in. Whereas men are more risk taking, more willing to think outside the box when it comes to investing. And sometimes that they get burned, right? The guys could get reckless and lose more money and be victimized by a scam more likely, sometimes with women. But I think women have to change a bit and recognize that if they just maintain that stance, if their only goal is not to lose their dollars, they're going to lose sight of the bigger picture, that in trying to
Mhm.
preserve their dollars, they didn't notice that their dollars lost their value. So you've preserved nothing, right? So you've got to be willing to recognize that and then take more unconventional risks, because from my perspective, having a portfolio of U.S. stocks and bonds is a lot riskier. Even though it's performed well, although the bonds haven't, but stocks have recently. I think that's temporary, and even the gains in the stock market are illusory, because if you look at where the stock market was in 2001, which was the beginning of this century, the Dow was about 10,000, a little bit higher, 10,000 and change, but not even 11,000, just above 10,000. And gold was below 300. And even though the Dow is, 40, what is it, 42,000 or something like that? Let me see, or where is it? I know it's 43, almost 44,000 now. It's at a record high. But in terms of gold, it's almost lost half its value over the last 24 years.
Well, for those of us who are in the high risk, high reward arena, who are looking to outperform versus just protect, what are some stocks or fund names that you might recommend?
Well, I think the best risk reward out there for a speculative investor is are the mining stocks. I'm trying to get. I always like. I manage a fund, the Europe Pacific Gold Fund. Or I don't manage it personally. I own it. Adrian Day manages it. The symbol is EPGIX, and you can buy that. It's the no load symbol, EPGIX. Any of the major discount brokerage firms, you can buy it. Um, I think that's the best play. I think these junior mining stocks, and we have a lot of those in our portfolio, are going to be the home runs. They're like the next crypto, right? You don't look for some shit coin that you think is going to go way up. Um, I think you could just buy quality mining stocks and get Bitcoin like returns. Not the type of returns you're going to get now, because I think you're going to lose money, but the type of returns if you'd have bought it a long time ago when the price was a lot lower.
A lot of my friends either have a little bit of Bitcoin and Ethereum or made money through meme coins, and they're new to mining. So for somebody who hears you and thinks, okay, junior mining stocks, let me look into them. Green flags, red flags?
Well, again, I wouldn't recommend that your friends just try to buy them, because there's more landmines and gold mines there. There's a lot of fraud. I mean, there's an old joke. The definition of a gold mine is a hole in the ground with a liar standing next to it. So the best thing to do is just buy my fund and let Adrian pick the stocks for you. And then you'll be diversified, and you won't have to worry that you pick, you bet on the wrong horse. Just give him the money, and he'll place the bets for you. He knows what he's doing.
Who is Adrian Day?
He's a guy that has been managing gold portfolios for more than 40 years. So for
Okay.
longer than most of your friends have been alive, this is what he's been doing for a living. And he's done a great job. He's got an excellent track record.
And as we head into 2025, I'm now thinking, what call do you have for early next year? What can we expect as we ring in 2025?
Well, it's hard to be that precise because we're only a few months away. But I think the deficits are going to keep getting bigger. Long-term interest rates are going to keep rising. And my big call has been that the Fed is going to be boxed into a corner where it ends up going back to quantitative easing. And, that's just going to be the match that lights the tinderbox, for the next big spike in CPI measured inflation. So right now, everybody's talking about low inflation and inflation's back to 2%. I think the story of 2025 will be the resurgence of inflation.
And many people are looking at entrepreneurship. I feel like that's a key word that's just been gathering more and more popularity over the past few years and even decades. What economic factors, trends should budding entrepreneurs be looking out for as of
Well, I
today
think,
and onwards?
yeah, the economic environment is going to be difficult. And so, it's always difficult to start a business. Most businesses fail. And obviously, in a weak, challenging economy where your potential customers are broke and struggling, it's harder. And then, of course, regulations. To the extent that Trump can manage to eliminate a number of regulations, that could be very helpful if the business that you want to get into is one that is seeing the deregulation, and so it might be easier for you to get started. But yeah, I think you got to be selective in the type of business that you start, um, because it's going to be tough in the U.S. I think a lot of businesses are going to be failing over the next few years because the customers just don't have the money to buy their services or their goods, whatever they're selling. But if you could try to find a business that could do well in a weak economy, I mean, there are some businesses that do better. I think if I'm right about the dollar, if you can export stuff, you're be in much better position.
And just for those who don't understand your position about the dollar or have missed it, can you just restate what your positioning is?
Well, I just think the end game for the dollar is that it goes much lower against not just gold, like it's been falling, but against its fiat counterparts, all the other currencies. And that's going to severely diminish the living standard of Americans because right now we rely on overvalued dollars to buy the goods that we don't produce. But when the dollar crashes, we won't be able to afford those goods. We don't produce them ourselves, and we won't be able to afford to buy the ones that are produced by the rest of the world. So it's going to be a game changer. But I think for the rest of the world, it's going to be a change for the better. But you can try to profit from that if you're properly positioned.
And before we do have to wrap it up, where can viewers find you? I understand you've got the podcast. You're very active on YouTube and Twitter. But how to best follow your ongoing thoughts and predictions?
Yeah, well, the podcast is great to listen to on shiffradio.com or on my YouTube channel. I do one or two a week. I'll, be doing another one, I think, tomorrow. I did one yesterday on the outcome of the election.
The live.
I'm on social media quite a bit. My most active platform is X. I've got over 1 million followers there. And so I do all my own posting. It's not some ghostwriter. I mean, I have a thought, I type it in, there it goes. There's a lot of action on my page. There's a lot of engagement, a lot of conversations, a lot of crypto people are trolling me. So, but I would suggest people follow and join in on that. We do have a newsletter that I put out, a free newsletter. You get about 3 of them a week, sometimes more. You can sign up for free at schiffsovereign.com. Also have some other services that we provide that you can learn about, but make sure to sign up for the free newsletter, right? You got nothing to lose there, but there's a lot of great information that we deliver to your inbox. And of course, just, be a customer, buy gold at Schiff Gold, and, be a customer of my asset management company. If you have a higher net worth, and you can work with us there, or if you don't, you can buy my mutual funds, and I can manage your money, at Schwab or Fidelity or any of these discount accounts, as long as you've got money in my fund.
There's also a ton of videos on YouTube of you debating the Bitcoin community.
Yeah, I've
What are
debated.
some common grounds between those guys and yourself?
Well, I've debated most of the big ones, not all of them. I mean, Michael Saylor refuses to debate me. A lot of people have tried to get that. Uh, uh, Novogratz hasn't agreed to debate me. Those are the ones that haven't. But there are a lot of ones that have no problem, and they debate me. Um, and a lot of them, we do have a lot in common as far as our libertarian philosophy, our Austrian uh, economic uh, school of thought. It's interesting that a lot of the younger crypto guys, guys that are in their 20s and their 30s, or maybe even older, but a lot of those guys, many of them credit their involvement in Bitcoin to me. I mean, I'm the reason that they bought it, right? Not that I recommended it, but because they followed me and read about me, they developed their economic philosophy, which led them to adopt Bitcoin early on. When it was, initially it was really in libertarian circles, that free market kind of computer geek people. That's why I found out about it, because I mean I was tangentially, I wasn't a coder in on it, but I found out about it relatively early on. But a lot of the people who are big in crypto now, thank me for getting them on board, even though I didn't encourage them to buy it, but I put them on the path that unfortunately led them to it. Now, maybe it's fortunate because they got in so early. If they get out, they make a lot of money. I certainly wouldn't want to be responsible for people buying crypto now when they're going to lose a lot of money. But yeah, but so we most of the crypto people and we have a lot more in common than we disagree on. And sometimes the only thing we disagree on is Bitcoin. We could agree on everything but Bitcoin. So, but there are some people, that own Bitcoin now that, don't even really have an economic outlook. They just bought it because they heard it was going up. Their friends bought it and they told them to buy it. So you've got a lot of people in there that aren't really philosophically wedded to it in any sense. They're going to ride the train so long as they think they're going to make money. But
Because like what's true is people are in it to make money, right?
most
Like
people are
that's
in it
really
to make, yeah, but well,
the
because what
goal.
else, you can't do anything else with it but make money. That's why people want it, because they think the price is gonna go up. That's what's driving people into it. That's why everybody makes these predictions. That's why Michael Saylor is like $30 million of Bitcoin. Why is everybody talking about how high the price of Bitcoin is going to go? Because that's the reason to buy it. There's nothing else, right? So you got to constantly pound these high numbers to get people to buy it, because that's how you're going to get rich. But there are people that are selling it. See, when you're buying a Bitcoin, you got to ask yourself, if it's going to 30 million, why is somebody selling it to me? Right? Obviously, the person who's selling it to you doesn't think it's going to 30 million, or they wouldn't be selling it.
Um, Wrapping it up here, Peter, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We hope we can get you back next time. Our viewers can find Peter on all of the platforms that he mentioned earlier. And if you're still around and watching, make sure to hit subscribe and expect more great content from us. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.